Meet the Candidates. Brought to you by Grand County Television, Channel 18.
Hello there, my name is Gary DeVries of the Grand County TV 18. I want to thank you for tuning in today for Meet the Candidate. We are here at Cousins Ranch here in Fraser. We want to thank Grand Historical Association for letting us use this facility here to carry on a couple of conversations with our candidates here. Today we were going to meet the candidate, Merrit Linke, and he's running for District 2 County Commissioner. There's a lot of information that I want to get from you and the viewers want to get from you.
Okay.
So you're here to answer a couple of questions.
All right.
Some of the background, I know your family's been up here for a long time, but we might not know who you are, so can you tell us who you are and what you want to do?
All right, well, I'll start with the background just a little bit. My great-grandfather homesteaded here in 1883, and the ranch, they started as a ranch, and actually drove a bunch of cattle over Berthoud Pass. And there's a whole nother history you can look up. But anyway, that's how we got started. And I'm fourth generation. My story is a little more different than maybe a lot of people think. When I graduated from high school at Middle Park High School in Granby, my graduation gift from my parents wasn't a car, wasn't a bunch of money, wasn't a trip to Bermuda. It was a suitcase and a pair of gloves. And my mom probably feels a little bit bad about that at times, but really it was probably the best gift that I could have ever got, because I got out and got myself educated and got to work. And I went to college at Northeastern Junior College in Sterling for 2 years, and I actually graduated from the University of Wyoming with a degree in secondary education. I became a science teacher, and I actually worked here as a substitute teacher and a coach before I got a full-time job out in eastern Colorado, where I was teaching everything from 6th grade PE to high school chemistry, and coached every sport that they offered for boys. We were there for 4 years, and then we went to Pinedale, Wyoming, and along the way there I did meet my wife, who is also a graduate of the University of Wyoming, and her name is Terry, and we have 3 kids. And they were kind of born along the line there. The first one was born as we were making the transition from Fleming, Colorado to Pinedale, Wyoming. We were there for 4 years, where I also taught high school science, chemistry and physics primarily. And from there, and in the process, we had 2 more children, both of which were born in Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
So you have 5 kids altogether?
We have, no, that was, sorry, the math there. We only have 3. We have two daughters and a son. And our son is a junior in high school, and both of our girls are in college at the University of Wyoming. Okay. My oldest is a senior. She's going to become a teacher. And my middle child is going into ag communications. Anyway, so then from there we went to Laramie County Community College in Cheyenne, where I taught for 2 more years. And then we came back here, where I taught again in Middle Park High School for 2 years, again teaching science. And along the line there, an opportunity came up for me to get into business, which I'd always been doing somewhat on the side. And we got back into the ranch business, where we were buying some cows and leasing some properties and running some cattle. And along that line there, I was recruited by a company as a sales rep for an international, actually, feed company. And I worked for them, I believe, for 6 years. And I became independent, an independent dealership at this point. So the 3 facets of my business are hay production, livestock marketing and production, and our feed business, which is basically a wholesale distribution.
And is it just in this area here, or do you go out into Wyoming?
It's primarily in this area, but we do sell feed in seven states, so we're pretty regional at that point. But that's what we do right now. So it's more of a business, not maybe as a typical rancher per se, but more of as an agricultural business person. Right. So that's what we do.
And with the business background and your teaching background and being out in different communities that you've been involved in, what do you believe we need to do on a county level to boost the economic development around here and to spur our growth in this area?
That's a really good question, and that's what is on a lot of people's minds. What can the county do? And I think that the first thing that we need to do is take a look at ourselves as a county. What is the county doing as an entity to get money in the hands of the people? And I think that one of the things that we'd like to look at is make the county itself more efficient in terms of what can we do within each department individually. What can we do to provide either more services or reduce the tax burden on some of the taxpayers. And I think that alone is going to spur growth more than anything that we could do per se in terms of offering tax rebates or tax breaks or anything like that, because I don't believe that that's really the answer at this point. I think we need to facilitate the development of business rather than trying to create jobs or business as an entity.
And what type of businesses are you looking at that would be helpful in this area?
I think that we need to look at anything that Grand County can do to produce a good or a service that is not currently being produced, or enhance the ones that are working now. I mean, I think we need to take a look at some of the services and products that Grand County offers and see which ones are working good, which ones are not, and maybe somehow enhance the ones that are working. Mm-hmm. Enhance tourism, enhance industry or logging or whatever it is that we can do that Grand County produces.
Mm-hmm. And do you happen to know how many people actually are in the government around here in Grand County?
It's a pretty big number. I believe, and I'm not sure you want to quote me on this, but I believe the county employees is about 250 people. So that's just Grand County. Yeah, that's full time. And there's another big chunk that's in the federal level government, the Forest Service and the BLM. So government is a big part of our economy for sure.
In a small area.
In a small area.
Mm-hmm. What will be your first order of business if you're elected? How are you going to clean house? What do you want to do? What's your first step in jumping in there?
What I would like to do is meet individually with every department head and ask them what kind of things that we can do to make their department more efficient. Is there things that we can do that simply saves us money and still provides the services that we're supposed to offer to our customer, which is the taxpayer? What can we do to just make that department more efficient? It might involve some cuts in some services. It might involve some cuts in personnel, but we just need to make it more efficient. Look and see if there's overlap. And the other big thing that's on a lot of people's minds is that the county, in my opinion, should not be in any kind of competition with private business. And there's some specific examples that we really need to look at.
That's a good point.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good
point.
point.
I think we need to take a look at those things.
With jumping in there and being elected, you have to make sure there's a difference between what the government's doing and what they're competing against with the private industry. But when you do that, what makes the difference? What's going to be the difference of a community effort and a business effort and a government effort to create something positive for the whole community?
Maybe a specific example is the best way to attack the answer to that question, and one of which has been in a lot of talk recently is the gravel crushing business. There's several entities and businesses in the county that are in the gravel crushing business, and those businesses are struggling right now. But yet the county has its own crusher operation that is funded by taxpayer dollars. They have a crusher crew, employees, and equipment and infrastructure. And to me, that's something that really needs to have a hard look at it, because to me that is in direct competition with some viable businesses that have been here for a long time.
You know, that's very interesting, and I'd like to keep going on that point right there. But we're going to be right back with Merrit Linke with Channel 18, TV 18 here, and ask some more questions, so stick around, please.
Meet the Candidates, brought to you by Grand County Television, Channel 18.
Hello there, welcome back to Meet the Candidate. I'm Garrett DeVries with Merrit Linke here, and discussing some more issues for the Republican running for District 2 for the County Commissioner. Merrit, I know you graduated from high school, Middle Park High School, and you're alumni. What are your thoughts on the school system and the challenges we face in the coming events?
That's a good question. You know, the school is really one of the things, a glue that kind of holds our community together. And by and large, I think we have a good school system. I really do. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't do better. I've been involved with the school system here in a lot of ways. I was a substitute teacher and coach way back before I got full-time teaching job. And I was a teacher here for 2 years as a high school science teacher. And I actually have a current Colorado substitute certificate as we speak. And I was actually on the substitute list last year, and I actually went in and taught in the middle school last year. I'm also heavily involved in the school because my kids go to school here, including my son, who's a junior this year, and I had 2 daughters that graduated from Middle Park High School in the last few years.
What sports does he play?
He is playing football right now. He's
Okay.
he's the starting left tackle,
All
so,
right.
and he's doing great. He loves football. Anyway, and, the other thing that I'm involved with is our Gridiron Club, which is the independent sort of a parent group that supports all levels of football throughout Grand County. And the big event that we just completed was the Gridiron Bash, which is our annual fundraiser.
Right.
That we had, and we had Carl Mecklenburg as our speaker, and it turned out fantastic. We raised a lot of money, and we had a lot of support, and we're in the process of deciding what best to use for that money, how we can best support all levels of football in Grand County.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one big involvement that I am doing as a parent, as a community member. But I'd also like to see the schools look really hard at what we can do to attract and keep the best personnel in terms of teacher and administrators as possible. It seems like that we have a really high transition, and we don't have a lot of continuity within certain programs. And I think we need to really take a look at what we can do to facilitate keeping our best and brightest.
Yeah. And that's tough to do, and especially in a small area.
Well, small area, and our living expenses here are pretty high. So sometimes people see this maybe as a stepping stone to get into a bigger district or something that maybe isn't have such high living costs.
Mm-hmm.
So we attract people here because of the recreational opportunities, but I'd like to see us maybe transition people here because we have great schools and we want to work in that school.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something we need to work on.
Knowing a lot of the kids that have grown up through here, I would agree with the school system is a good school system.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we have people like yourself and a lot of different volunteers around here that are supporting it
Yes.
tremendously.
Yes.
As a rancher, tell us your thoughts on the water issue Grand County will face over the next decade, and what you do or will do to change it or to improve it. But the water system, we have a heck of a water system up here.
Yes.
That seems to be deleted.
Yes, and this year was exceptionally unique in that we were so dry. And so the water issues really came to the forefront just because we're in the middle of a drought.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's rainy here lately and it looks pretty decent, we're still exceptionally low in terms of our rainfall and coming off of a low snowfall winter. Now, in terms of the water agreements, the big one, of course, was the Moffett firming that just got signed this summer, and we made a big deal out of it with the governor and so forth. And probably as commissioner, I would not have signed that agreement. I just think that there was too many unanswered questions with that agreement. The environmental impact statement was not yet signed, which reminds me a little bit of a certain Speaker of the House that signed an agreement so we could learn what was in it after the fact. And I don't think that's the right way to go about these things. I think we need to get all the ducks lined up before we sign.
And they have been working on this for years.
They've been working on this for a long time, and I think we really need to make sure that all of the agreements are spelled out exactly what is to happen, and that they're honoring the original agreements, which it seems to be that maybe we're not. So my question is, why would we sign another agreement if we're not honoring the existing agreements?
Ones.
Yes.
And they started many years ago.
Years
too.
ago, yes. One of the biggest ones for the Windy Gap firming was signed in 1980. And there's some pretty glaring instances in that agreement that they're not following. And I think we need to get those questions answered before we go forward with what to do with the water.
And I think we're having a dam issue now with Windy Gap or something. down there
Yes, that's right. There's
Yeah.
some, and that goes back to that agreement. That's part of the reason why we're having some of those issues, because some of the components of that agreement were not followed through, were not enforced.
now. Yep.
So we need to take a look at those things.
How are we going to enforce those? Can the commissioners do that?
The commissioners are not really the enforcing agency, and that's, I think, where we run into a problem. The state is supposed to enforce it, but the state is wanting, in my opinion, to pass the buck to the feds, and the feds is saying, no, state, you take care of it. So there's a little bit of passing the buck going on there with how these things get enforced.
How do you respond to people who are concerned that if you're elected, 2 out of 3 Grand County commissioners would be ranchers in the county where real estate, tourism, and resort-related activities are primary economic drivers in this valley?
That's a good question, and I'd like to say first that I'm probably not the typical rancher, whereas I don't
I would
own
agree with that.
I don't own a group of cows that we raise calves and sell calves and feed out hay, and actually I don't own any production cows at this point. I have in the past, and I typically buy and sell or lease or take care of other people's cattle, kind of like a hostel or boarding house for cattle in the summer, kind of a tourism for cows kind of an aspect. So I do things a little different there. And I also have a feed business and a custom hay and hay brokering selling kind of a business. So it's more of a business rather than a rancher, typical rancher kind of a business. And I think that with those experience in buying and selling products gives me a better feel for being in tune with the community in terms of a business sense rather than being a typical rancher type that, you know, is pretty stuck in the old ways or traditional.
Right. A little more aggressive, and you've seen a lot more different areas and
Right.
more background and wisdom.
Right. Plus the diversity, the fact that I was a teacher for 12 years in a lot of different components of the education business. So I think that gives me a little bit different feel really than just a typical rancher that's grown up through the generations of the ranch business.
And have you ever held a public office before this?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not held any public office. I serve on several committees, but I've never held a public office,
Okay.
which I think is an advantage.
Yes. Okay. What and for the last kind of comments here, why are you running? What do you want to run for? And why do you want people to vote for Merrit Linke?
Okay, that's a good question. I've been asked that question a lot, and I've always said that there's really two paths that you can take when you don't like the way things are going. And not that they're going terrible, but if you don't like the way things are going, you can do one thing, and that's the easy way. You can sit back and gripe about it and complain about it, or you can step up and choose to get involved. And that's the path that I took. I was gone from Grand County for about 12 years, or 10 years, including some college years thrown in there too. But I chose to come back here to raise my family and operate and run a business right here in Grand County. And because of that, I decided to step up and see what I could do to make Grand County better. And I think with the diversity of background that I have, I think that I would be able to make rational and objective decisions about what's best for Grand County. And even those might be some hard choices at times, I believe that I have the wisdom to be able to make an objective decision. Not that it might be the most popular, but in my mind it would be the best.
And one of the decisions and discussions you're going to be working on here is the landfill. Landfill, we have an issue
That's
with
a good
landfill.
one. Yeah, that is a very touching issue, if we want to put it mildly. But there was a lot of past sins probably that weren't addressed. And one of the big ones, and this relates a little bit to my science background, I think that we should have had a few more complete geological studies before we decided to put a landfill there in the first place.
On a hill.
And again, we are fixing a mess that we didn't create at this point. And I think we need to get back and get some objective geological analysis of that, which the county I think is doing somewhat now. But it's going to cost a lot of money, and I don't honestly have the greatest answer for that right now.
Yep, and money whether we have or not.
That's right.
Merrit Linke, thanks so much for coming in and giving us your views, your opinions of the Valley. I wish you the best of luck.
Well, thanks for inviting me, and I would appreciate your vote on November 6th.
Okay. I am Gary DeVries with Merrit Linke here. We are on TV 18, and we are Meet the Candidate. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.